This is Maka Wuhu, and this is its respawn glitch. Discovered just 2 days after the game was released, its legacy is so great that today it's one of the most infamous glitches in all of Mario Kart. News of its discovery quickly spread, and with players using it both online and offline, it didn't take very long until almost every single player knew of its existence. But while almost every player knew about the glitch, there is something about the track that most players don't know about. Because as it turns out, Maka Wuhu had another glitch. Now, despite the fact that most players haven't even heard of it before, this glitch is actually quite special. Throughout the years, Mario Kart games have always had a habit of being broken quickly. Many of the games have had glitches discovered after just a few months, with the first shortcut in Mario Kart Super Circuit even being found before the game was released. So when Otowax discovered the Maka Wuhu glitch, it wasn't actually too surprising. Players expected the game to be broken, and although it happened faster than many had expected, it wasn't unheard of for Mario Kart games to be broken quickly. But what happened next was unheard of, because just 1 day after the glitch was discovered, Maka Wuhu was broken for a second time. On December 4th, 2011, Inviso posted a video of a second glitch on Maka Wuhu. The glitch itself was actually quite simple. By gliding down to the top of the hotel below, and then respawning before you reach the track again, you would be brought back onto the track at a point further ahead than where you were. It didn't save a lot of time, especially when compared to the first glitch, but for a run this short, any time save was a really big deal. You see, Maka Wuhu had already become the shortest track in the game. The discovery of the first glitch had allowed Otowax to beat the world record by more than 20 seconds, and after other players had lowered the time a bit further, it was 5 seconds faster than any other track in the game. But with there now being a second glitch on the track, the world record was quick to fall. Over the following week, the record was lowered by several seconds, with the players Liar, Nanashi, and Hatomugi all setting world records of their own, before Skyburst came along to absolutely demolish the competition. Despite being more than half a second ahead of the competition, his run actually followed many of the same strategies as everyone else. The general strategy on the track is to take the tightest lines possible, while also collecting as many coins as you can along the way. Each coin you collect increases your top speed by half a kilometer per hour, which over the course of a full run adds up pretty quickly. He also used all 3 of his mushrooms to cut off a few corners, and to finish the first section of the track in less than 21 seconds. The rest of the run was a lot more straightforward. After performing the respawn glitch, Skyburst collected 2 more coins in section 2, and then in section 3, he drove through the rest of the track as normal, making sure to perform the second respawn glitch along the way. Despite the game only being a couple of weeks old, these strategies had already been well established, with Hatomugi's former world record following a nearly identical path through the first section, and even doing a slightly faster version of the first glitch. So, how had Skyburst managed to be so much faster than everyone else? Well, there was one thing he was doing differently. This is a delay drift, and for speedrunners, it's one of the most fundamental strategies in Mario Kart 7. It saves a significant amount of time over the normal way of drifting, and although many find it counterintuitive at first glance, the reason it works is actually quite simple. You see, compared to previous games in the series, Mario Kart 7 made a small change to how the kart acts while in the air, making it so that any steering input performed while in the air will result in a massive amount of speed loss. For the most part, this change had very little impact on how the game is played, but when it comes to drifting, it made all the difference. Because in order to start any drift in the game, you first need to go into the air. This means that any steering input done before landing back onto the ground will result in immediate time loss, and so players quickly figured out that the fastest way to drift in the game was to wait until the moment that the kart touched the ground before steering in any direction. Skyburst had used this to his advantage throughout the entire track, giving him a big advantage over both Hatamugi and anyone else who wasn't using them. And as the days went by, his record stayed on top. Days turned into weeks, and although some players had come close, nobody had been able to beat him. By the end of the month, his record was the oldest in the game, having been on top for more than half of the game's life. But with so many players competing to lower their times, it's almost inevitable for world records to be beaten. And although Skyburst's record had defied the odds for a while, it wouldn't last forever. And so, on December 31st, after having held the record for nearly 3 weeks, Skyburst's record would finally fall. It's hard to know what Skyburst thought after losing his record, but one thing was clear: he wasn't going down without a fight. And just 3 days later, he got the record back, beating KCB by more than 1/10 of a second. Only to lose the record again just 3 hours later. But Skyburst wasn't out of it yet. He'd only been beaten by a few hundredths of a second, and if anything, it only seemed to motivate him more. And so, instead of just beating Alektorn back, Skyburst went one step further, beating the world record 4 times and once again establishing himself as the best player on the track. For the next few weeks, very little changed on the leaderboard. Skyburst's run had pretty much everything: fast glitches, decent enough driving, and although there were a couple of mistakes, the days of beating a world record through new strategies alone were over. The track was entering into a new era, one where, in order to set a world record, players would need to not only perform fast glitches, but also drive faster than anyone else. And on January 28th, the first record in this new era was set, when Somin set a 105.436, beating Skyburst's time by more than 1/4 of a second. And the most surprising part? Nearly all of that time was saved in Section 2. Despite being the shortest section of the track, Section 2 is actually one of the most important parts of the run. Quite a bit of time can be saved at the glitch itself, and because of how far away from the optimal line you are when you respawn, the recovery can be quite difficult. The fastest way to recover from the glitch is to hold left the entire time from when you respawn to when you're aligned with the next corner. This is possible due to a state known as auto drift, where smoke comes out of your back tires and you're able to steer on a straight while not losing time. Skyburst hadn't been doing this, and because of this, Somin was easily able to save more than 2/10 of a second. Somin's record, however, wouldn't last for long. The last time that somebody beat Skyburst, he did everything in his power to reclaim the world record, and on the 9th of February, a former world record holder would once again return to the track. But this time, it wasn't Skyburst, it was Alektorn, who after having set dozens of other world records, finally came back to Maka Wuhu, and he quickly broke through, first setting a high 105.2, before lowering his time to a 105.1 just 2 days later. For many players, that would have been the end of it. To lose the record by such a large margin, especially to one of the best players in the world, it could have been crushing. But Somin welcomed the challenge. And so, while Alektorn moved on to play other tracks, Somin kept grinding. And what he managed to achieve over the following months was nothing short of incredible. 104.828. After just a few months, Somin had managed to not only reclaim the world record, but also lower his time well into the 104s, something that nobody else had been able to do. He truly was in a league of his own, and as time went by, it was clear that nobody was going to be able to challenge him. His time was the only 104 on the leaderboard, and although several players had times in the low 105s, nobody was even close to him. This was finally a record that looked like it would last. And for the next couple of months, that held true. Nobody was even trying to beat his time, with his time still being the only 104. But by August, Somin's record finally started to come under a bit of pressure. Adromaster had started playing the track. Unlike most of the other players on the leaderboard, Adro already had a lot of experience on Maka Wuhu. He was the world record holder for the no glitch category, and being able to bring that experience to the glitch category was enough to make him an immediate threat. But that wasn't all Adro brought with him, because in addition to having a lot of experience on the track, he also had a few new strategies to work with. An extra mini turbo at the start, and also a new coin strategy in section 3. It was pretty clear that it wasn't a question of if Adro would get the world record, but a question of when. And on the 16th of August, he had a pretty good chance, getting a run into section 3 that was 300ths ahead of the world record. And with the new coin strategy still to come, it was a golden opportunity. He drove through the first half of section 3 as safely as possible, making sure to stay far away from the walls, and leaving no chance for the coin strategy to go wrong. But despite having had a decent lead when he entered section 3, he'd almost played it too safe, and by the time he got to the second glitch, he was behind the world record. He still had a chance thanks to the extra coins he had collected, but it was going to be close. It all came down to the final glitch. Well, that's what should have happened. But with such a small margin between him and the world record, Adro decided to take matters into his own hands. And so, instead of just doing the second glitch like everyone else, Adro did this. (104.802). He had done it. After having held the world record for more than 6 months, Somin had finally been beaten. But it wasn't quite the victory that most players would have expected. After all, Adro had lost a lot of time in section 3, and he hadn't even done the second glitch at all. And so, when Somin came back to the track just a few months later, it took him no time at all to get the record back, easily improving it by almost 1/10 of a second. But the thing is, Somin didn't use the second glitch either. In fact, after more than a decade of competition, the second glitch still hasn't been used again, with many players today not knowing that it existed at all. At the start of this video, I told you that what makes this glitch so special was how quickly it was discovered after the game was released. And while that is true, it isn't the whole truth. Because while there have been dozens of other glitches discovered over the years, to this day, this is still the only time that a glitch has ever been permanently beaten by a no-glitch strategy. We often think that the strategies we use are the best that can be found. But if there's one thing that can be learned from Maka Wuhu's second glitch, it's that no matter how impressive the strategies are, there's always a chance that there's something faster, just waiting to be found. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, consider subscribing. I have more videos like this coming soon. Thanks.